Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 472. One Person. Part 1. The forged steel expanded and protected both me and E.G. Hai. Constellation, Master of Steel, is revealing his status. Yi Hyun-sung's sponsor was the original Master of Steel. However, he was killed off during the Oz incident the last time. Before that, though, he managed to successfully hand his modifier over to someone else. King of Silverlight Heart. The King of Silverlight Heart, that was the new Master of Steel. He was yet another existence who witnessed the 999th turn's conclusion, alongside the Master of the Sunken Island. And it was none other than Yi Hyun-sung from the 999th turn. Stop with your ridiculous charade as a sponsor. What do you think you're doing? Was it because she was facing another king like her? The 999th turn's E.G. Hai was rapidly regaining her reasoning. You kept silent when we were calling for you, so why are you appearing like this now? The Master of the Sunken Island continued on. It was you who suggested that we follow the rules. We promised to find our stories again, even if that meant we'd become the apocalypse of another world. To get our scenarios back from the star stream. That's what you suggested, right? The fables flowing near them helped me to guess what their lives had been like. Jihaya. We must stick to the rules. Even if we become the outer gods, do not forget that rule. Only that rule will protect you when the world tries to inflict you with pain. It'll speak up for you, that you are not wrong. Just like how E.G. Hai's from different regression turns were still E.G. Hai, Yi Hyun-sung's found in the same turns were also undoubtedly Yi Hyun-sung. Even after he became an outer god, his original nature didn't change. The King of Silverlight Heart stared at me next. I couldn't decipher the emotions contained within his gaze. This is my rule, Jihaya. To prevent the reenactment of the 999th turn's tragedy. What rubbish are you talking about? Is rule something you can easily change on a whim, like flipping your hand around? I've heard several stories from my sponsor who used to live this world line. In some ways, this world line could very well be the one we've been searching for. The King of Silverlight Heart was glowing coldly as he spoke. The world line where the end of everything could be witnessed. Those words caused the 999th turn's E.G. Hai to hesitate. Such a world line can't exist. Besides, this world line is about to end, anyway. Even if you interfere, even if I stop. It seemed that the King of Silverlight Heart chose not to become the calamity of the great apocalypse. I expected something like that, though. If he really was thinking of harming us, then he'd have done so back in the Oz. And since I knew that, I decided to bring our Yi Hyun-sung here. As a final hidden card, prepared for that one-off chance. These people aren't that weak. Uriel alone won't make it. The King of Silverlight Heart ended his words there. The Master of the Sunken Island then replied, her empty, wandering eyes staring at the distant horizon. But then, life returned to her eyes right next moment, with an expression of someone who saw something quite unpleasant. What if she's not alone? And then, pitch-black darkness blanketed the world beyond the horizon. Something we failed to foresee was revealing itself over yonder. Asterisk. The rest of Kim Dokja Company's companions were camping out near Dokdo Island, waiting for something to show up. A short while after Kim Dokja had disappeared towards the Pacific Ocean, they started hearing the drumbeat-like noises bellowing out from there every so often. They flinched every time they heard those noises. No one said anything about their intermittent flinching movement, but they all knew what it meant, anyway. I want to go and help Kim Dokja. However, they endured it. This was all part of their strategy. If they carelessly made a move here, then forget about saving Kim Dokja, they might end up losing everything, instead. They simply had to stick to the plan. According to the plan, this place was Kugugugugu. It was right then they felt the heat coming from the sky. Powerful heat waves completely blanketed the entirety of the ocean. When they reflexively raised their heads, they were treated to a truly unbelievable spectacle. Kim Dokja was right. The burning, seething sun was falling towards the middle of the ocean. Han Suyang, in charge of the control tower, shouted out from the top of Gong Pildu's fortress. "Get ready for battle." This heat was so intense that it felt like even their souls were melting. And within the solar flames, the booing 999th turns Uriel floated silently. Where is the secretive plotter? The outer god king, the living flame that rises up from the east. Han Suyang swallowed back her saliva after sensing the enormous status wafting in front of her. More correctly, she tried to. However, she couldn't sense any moisture within her mouth, as if all of her saliva had evaporated. She forced her parched throat to speak up. "And now, we commence with the flame extinguishment." The flame extinguishment, that was the mission the first team was tasked with. Han Suyang recalled the last words Kim Dokja said to her before he disembarked. "Don't kill her. She's also Uriel." That damn Kim Dokja. He wanted them to subdue such a thing without killing it. The silence continued and the living flame narrowed her eyes. "If you aren't going to answer." Yu Sang-a. The signal was given and Yu Sang-a extended her arms out. As her Buddhist robe wavered gently, a gigantic mandala spun around behind her and it shot towards the sun. The strongest debuff skill Kim Dokja Company currently possessed was activated. Fable, Hour of Mandala, is activating. It was really negligible, but the movement of the sun had become just a little slower. The 999th turns Uriel muttered out. "Interfering with time and space? Is Sakyamuni in this place? I haven't sensed his aura, though." Kudu-do-do-do. She clenched her fist and the space-time of the surrounding world shook powerfully as if it'd shatter at any moment. Blood leaked out of Yu Sang-a's lips. "This is the best I can do." Zhang Huiwen. Shin Yusung. Two of them dashed forward after hearing Han Suyang's order. The first one the 999th turns Uriel discovered was Shin Yusung. The shadow of a huge dragon was cast on the ocean's surface. And then, the poison breath blanketed the sun's destructive conflagration. "So, you're this worldline's beast lord?" A portion of Uriel's incarnation body touched by the breath changed color, but that lasted only for a short while. Her skin reverted back to normal in the blink of an eye. "Why don't you try to block this, too?" That voice came from right beside her, and the 999th turns Uriel reflexively swung her sword. Cleo Wong. Flames of Retribution and Judge's Sword collided. Just one collision and Zhang Huiwen had to retreat while vomiting out blood. Incarnation Zhang Huiwen is currently activating Hour of Judgment. The Hour of Judgment? How are you using that technique against me? Who knows? The Hellfire covered Zhang Huiwen's sword, and the wings of Archangel spread out from behind her back. The 999th turns Uriel confirmed them and her expression hardened as she unleashed her status. "So, you are my incarnation." As if to oppose that statement, the power of the constellation emanated from Zhang Huiwen's body as well. "Huiwen is my incarnation, not yours." Two Uriels unleashed their statuses at each other and began colliding. The first exchange, then the second, as the collision increased in frequency, Zhang Huiwen's expression quickly grew more and more agitated. "What kind of power is? I won't get fooled by those ridiculous memories again like the last time." Zhang Huiwen was forced to go on the defensive in an instant, leading Uriel to urgently shout out. "CK! Are you just going to watch and do nothing?" Almost at the same time, jet black flames sneak attacked the 999th turns Uriel on her back. The living flame frowned heavily and spoke up. "The Black Flame Dragon." The Black Flame Dragon shouted out triumphantly, the bandages unwrapped from both of his arms now. "Kakik. How did that feel, you stinking angel?" The absolute good and the absolute evil. Two Fable-grade constellations who used to be sworn enemies once upon a time were fighting together in order to stop this calamity. The Hellfire and Black Flame bore down on the army of the sun. And as she was bathed in the storm of blinding light rays, Han Suyang quietly shuddered. So strong. With just one hand, the living flame was fighting against those two powerful constellations. This opponent couldn't be pushed back even when the two of them combined their strengths. Me of this turn only amounts to this much? Where is Eden? Why are you fighting alongside these people? CK, Eden has been destroyed already. Eden is no more? And you wish to confront me without the blessing of the nebula? The living flame then turned her head away as if to indicate that she had no more reason to fight these two. The sun's rays seemed to grow even stronger, then some things began crawling out from the intense heat. They were outer gods that followed her. An army numbering several thousand was waiting for her command. Go. Find the secretive plotter. Their march began. Countless, nameless ones possessing burning wings began descending to the world below. At this rate, the whole of the Korean peninsula might get swept aside in an instant. Incarnation, Shin Yusung is activating Superlative Diverse Communication LV. Shin Yusung made her move. Countless aquatic creatures burst out of the ocean's surface and leapt up to bite the ankles of the nameless ones before dragging them down. Then, the master of the armed fortress, Gong Pildu, joined her as well. Automated turrets installed atop the defensive walls began spitting out licks of flames, and the nameless ones turning into Swiss cheese all screamed in pain. The 999th turn Zuriel spoke up. You even accepted such an evil man as your comrade? How pathetic. The nameless ones continued to march unfazed towards Gong Pildu's fortress. And just as one of the outer walls was about to be destroyed by the constant attacks of the outer gods, Han Suyang cried out. Yigilyang. As if he was waiting for that, Yigilyang immediately appeared above the wall. Jet black status was tightly wrapped around the boy as he roared out to the sky. When he did, yellowish clouds rushed in from somewhere and covered up the heavens above. It was only for a moment, but this new army was vast enough to hide that white-hot star. Constellation, ruler of the deepest pit, is baring its white fangs. Demon god Abaddon? Why is a bastard like you here? Surprised by an unexpected enemy's entrance, the 999th turns Uriel growled menacingly. With Shin Yusung and Gong Pildu, and now also Yigilyang added to the mix, the battle had finally become evenly matched. Abaddon's yellow locust swarm threw themselves at the nameless ones and blocked them. Gaia! The nameless ones writhed in pain. The 999th Uriel furrowed her brows. While easily defending against the Archangel Uriel and the Black Flame Dragon's combined assault with only one hand, she began concentrating magical energy on the other. She was planning to break through the encirclement with her own Hellfire. However, there was someone here capable of reading her thoughts first. Now. Attack! Han Suyang's signal prompted a lengthy scythe to leap out from the surface of the deep ocean. Accompanied by the slicing noise, a huge wound was inflicted on the former Archangel's wing. White feathers scattered alongside the fable of the other world. King of the Underworld. For the first time ever, the expression of the 999th turns Uriel had completely stiffened. Nebula, Underworld, is releasing the stored-up fable. Hades and the portion of Underworld's elite forces crossed over using a portal, which included the three judges as well as Persephone. The nameless ones guarding the sun were brought down, and the Underworld's status began pressuring the 999th turns Uriel. However, she steadfastly withstood it. The incarnations of Sakyamuni and the Archangel Uriel, as well as the abyssal Black Flame Dragon. And on top of that, the myth-grade constellation Hades, too. Even though one of her wings was torn from a sneak attack, and she was currently subjected under the combat force of a fairly strong nebula as well, she was not being pushed back at all. No, it seemed that she was actually searching for an opportunity to overturn this situation, instead. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and join them. Constellation, most ancient liberator, lazily makes his move as if he finds this whole affair bothersome. Kugugugugu. Gloomy clouds rolled in just above the yellow-colored clouds. Lightning emitting an ominous bluish glow suddenly crashed down to the ocean below without holding back. The heavens breathlessly flickered, a figure of an aloof constellation was revealed in between the lightning flares brushing by, a myth-grade constellation blessed with dancing platinum hair and a rather uniquely arrogant grin stood there. The moment the 999th turn's Uriel opened her eyes wide, the Rui Jingu bang filling up her view powerfully smashed her entire body down. She failed to withstand the impact force and her incarnation body slammed into the ocean with a deafening explosion noise. Chapter 473. One Person. Part 2. Nice work, Sun Wukong. The clearly excited Han Suyong cried out. Along with the Kuar Yurak noise, bloody foams rose up above the ocean. Not too long after, 999th turn's Uriel revealed herself on the water's surface. She must have ripped apart the surrounding aquatic creatures before rising up, because her entire figure was bathed in a crimson hue. Rather than betrayal, it was the sense of wonderment filling up her expression. I can't believe it. Great sage, even you're taking their side? Eventually, that wonderment changed into a longing. The great sage detected that change and asked her. Who might you be, acting as if you know me? I'm simply recalling a comrade in arms I lost in the past. I don't have any desire to fight against you. Get out of the way. All I want is the secret of plotter. For sure, no will to battle could be felt from her voice. However, the great sage still shook his head. I also dislike that dour bastard, but, as he smiled indifferently, incredible aura exploded forth from his entire figure. Our Magne will be troubled if that guy dies, you see. Constellation, most ancient liberator, is revealing his status. He was the existence who finally liberated his status previously restricted by the headband, and he even acquired the powers of an outer god after a partial outer god transformation had taken place. Yogos that fought together with him during the journey to the West remake were exiting from the portal to descend on the Pacific Ocean. Monkey King, Monkey King, Monkey King. Outer gods worshipping different kings got into scuffles with one another. The ocean soaked in blood tumbled over violently, and the 999th turn's Uriel began gasping out. And finally, the taut equilibrium began tilting to one side. It's working. Keep pushing. Along with Han Suyong's voice, Kim Dokja Company's Great Fables began telling their stories at the same time. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Liberator of the Forgotten Ones, has begun its storytelling. Although the main shareholders Kim Dokja and Yu Young-hyuk were missing, other members still possessed not too shabby percentages of the Great Fable's shares. And also, there were some others who had finished getting ready and were itching to unleash the final strike. Only one sun in the sky is enough. First, it was Surya appearing along with his train. And then, cutting down outer gods have become quite a habit now. Let us combine our strengths, breaking the sky saint. I'm also coming. The Breaking the Sky Sword Saint and Kyrios, plus Jang Hyong, all joined in. And so, the 999th turn's Uriel was pushed on her back foot. Her expression was gradually being dyed in confusion. How? How can all of you be together? What kind of a world line is this? She was panicking at the great fables rushing in. Their sizes were quite large, but their contents proved to be even more problematic. Just how was it possible that such a fable existed? Just how? 3 transcenders riding on the train penetrated past the sun's heat barrier. Then, an attack containing the outrageous amount of power that combined, breaking the sky swordsmanship, lightning transformation, and even, breaking the sky force punch, shot out. Just as that strike was about to sneak in through Uriel's opening and land on her, a chilling sensation suddenly enveloped the nape of Han Suyong's neck. No, stop. Fable, predictive plagiarism, is urgently revising the story. The powerful sensation only she could feel in this whole world arrested her. And right next second, the noise akin to the time/space of the surrounding dimension being squeezed dry rang out loudly. Ka-du-du-du-duck. Han Soo-young couldn't tell what was going on before her eyes. What's this? Where is me in this regression turn? Could I have been killed already? That rebellious voice sounded as if a portion of the abyss had been taken away to mold it into reality. The transcenders approaching the rear of the outer god to land the final strike were falling to earth along with the destroyed train. Indescribably dark, black flames were burning on the ends of their clothing. A lone man was standing amidst the gloomy, dark clouds in the sky. He was someone Han Soo-young also knew. She knew him so well that goosebumps were breaking out on her skin. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is warning you of danger. The man slowly opened his mouth. Chet. I thought it was Ji-hai, what with this much rampaging status and all. Made a mistake since it's been so long and all. The son of the living flame emitted blinding rays of light. However, the darkness belonging to the man grew even thicker in response, just like the shadow lengthening against the light. The 999th turn Zoriel spoke. The monarch of the great abyss. Just who summoned a bastard like you to this world line? The nape of Han Soo-young's neck grew icy. She remembered what Kim Dokja told her about the ruler of the northern universe, the monarch of the great abyss. Hahat. You finally called me with that title. Besides all that, you look like you're in a bit of trouble? Should I help you out? The sun's corona flared up as if it was convulsing. I don't need it. Help from a scoundrel like you is. Don't be like that. We're comrades from the same regression turn, after all. The man cackled insidiously. He was none other than the demon of delusions Kim Nam-woon, who also witnessed the 999th turn's conclusion. And the moment his gaze moved, Han Soo-young felt a chill run down her entire body. I also want to see the black dragon's face, since it's been a while. Kim Nam-woon was already right by her face, and he began studying her with a nefarious gaze. Asterisk. When his eyes slowly opened up, Yu Young-hyuk realized that he was wandering within the darkness alone. The last thing he could remember was him researching the sure-kill attack with Kim Dokja. Something went wrong in the middle of that, and he lost his consciousness. Your soul form is currently in an unstable condition. Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, is currently in an illegible state. When is that idiot Yu Young-hyuk's birthday, again? Fragmented memories occasionally drifted in. He heard a voice in between his blurry consciousness. No, rather than a voice, it was far closer to letters, instead. Yu Young-hyuk quickly recognized whose speech pattern it belonged to. The regression turn mentioned for the first time is that silly manner of speech capable of irritating a person to no end. Only Kim Dokja spoke like that in the entire world. Yeah, this part was really entertaining, wasn't it? Sentences on the pages Kim Dokja was reading brushed past his eyes. Yu Young-hyuk saw himself fighting against constellations right there. The first regression turn, 41st, 666th. Kim Dokja's fingers tracing the letters suddenly stopped. The information on a certain regression turn could be spied in between his fingers lingering on for the longest time. The 999th turn. Even Yu Young-hyuk was aware of the events that happened during that regression turn. The Hellscape of Eternity was informing him of the time he couldn't remember through all the texts Kim Dokja had read. The latter seemed to be muttering softly while reading about that regression turn. I'm Yu Young-hyuk. The real Yu Young-hyuk didn't know anything about the life supported by that lame declaration. Yu Young-hyuk as read by Kim Dokja, his history remained like soot in between the flow of the pages. Ostracized within school, tormented in his part-time workplace by a boss busy stealing his wages, and going on a forced march until soles of his feet became a bloodied mess during his army days, Kim Dokja endured them all by calling himself Yu Young-hyuk. The latter simply couldn't understand the former. He had no idea what it meant for the time he had to endure ending up saving someone else living in a completely different world. He just didn't know what it meant for a person to become more courageous by reading about someone else's battles. Not only that, Yu Young-hyuk even found his own self as seen through those texts utterly unfamiliar. I can still fight. Did he really say that? Doesn't matter whether it's 100 times or 1,000, I shall continue to be reborn to kill you all. Was he really the kind of a person to say something like this? The voices of the companions that trusted him could be found among the countless texts. Captain. I only trust you. You must save the world in the next turn. The word lines kept vanishing, the only things left behind being those sentences. And as the volume of the words that tormented him increased, the value of life itself became cheaper. Just what did they see in him to fight alongside him? Who am I? Yu Young-hyuk was overcome with emptiness as he stared at the words outside his ability to comprehend. 1864 lifetimes. He already knew what sort of a world he had to cross to get here. However, he couldn't understand it at all. Is this really everything of me, these memories? Yu Young-hyuk grew curious. If he was really nothing more than a character just as Kim Dokja said, then what happened to the time he couldn't remember? Where was himself, not among the pages that Kim Dokja had read? Or, did he not exist from the get-go? Your sponsor is looking closely at you. Could he really be able to say from where his life had existed and where it ended? Suchachachut. He reflexively looked back at the emptiness as soon as he felt the chilling sensation. He found someone else other than him there. Are you doing an introspection of yourself? You don't have the time to waste like this. Yu Young-hyuk immediately recognized who it was. You shouldn't be able to move still. He glared at the secretive plotter. He instinctively reached out towards his dark heavenly demon sword, but the familiar hilt was nowhere to be found. This place was his imagined world. Items didn't exist here. The secretive plotter stared back at him and shook his head in disappointment. At this rate, all of your comrades will be annihilated. Annihilated? Cold sensation crept down his back. His companions were about to enter a dangerous battle against the Outer God King. He could definitely sense the ominous aura flowing around in the surroundings. He needed to wake up at once. He needed to get out of here, and there's no point in going with your current state. If you can't utilize the power of the 1863rd turn, then you won't prove to be any help whatsoever. So what? What are you saying? Yu Young-hyuk growled menacingly, yet the secretive plotter remained unruffled. You have another way of utilizing the power of the 1863rd turn. Right away, he deciphered the meaning behind those words. The only reason why he could regain the power of the 1863rd turn for a short moment was due to Kim Dokja's fable, Hellscape of Eternity. And the one who gave that fool his fable was. Yu Young-hyuk gritted his teeth and asked. You expect me to trust you? And why are you trying to help us? I was asked for a favor. A favor? I'll lend you my powers just this once. I hope that you learn something from this. The secretive plotter reached out from the darkness. There was no time to dodge, and the cold palm of a boy touched Yu Young-hyuk's forehead. And then, disconnected film theory is activating. Accompanied by pain severe enough to blank out the inside of his head, a humongous fable flooded in. These were memories he already knew. However, they were also the ones he failed to understand. Every fable of secretive plotter coursed within his bloodstreams while emitting white-hot heat. The first turn, second, third, for th, and then 1863rd. Countless Yu Young-hyuks were waking up within him. All of them were Yu Young-hyuk. Each of them was Yu Young-hyuk. But at the same time, Yu Young-hyuk was just one person. The one person who managed to live through 1864 lifetimes. He began remembering things one by one. Such as, who he was. What he lived for. Fables were circling around his vicinity. Within the fable, someone was asking this. By the way, when is Captain's birthday? That prompted Kim Dokja to reply. Ah, I found it. It was over here. 3rd of August. Right. He was born in the summer. A hellishly hot and humid summer, when horrible storms were lashing out. He could remember everything so vividly now. His birthday that no one celebrated or congratulated him for. All those anniversaries that lost their meanings as he went through 1864 lifetimes. Yu Young-hyuk slowly opened his eyes. The energy of fable completely saturated his whole body. This feeling was something he had not felt before during this third turn. He raised his head and sensed the hot rays of the sun. Even so far away, he could still clearly sense it, the outer god's presence calling out to him from beyond the faraway horizon. However, he didn't feel scared. He slowly raised his body up and confirmed the condition of his incarnation body. Every single part of it was operating at a near perfection. Fables he had compiled so far were permeating within every fiber of his being. In that very moment, Yu Young-hyuk felt as if he was reborn. Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, has recovered its complete status. This was the true power he originally possessed, the status of a being who reached the final turn of the world and witnessed the wall by himself alone. Disconnected film theory is currently activating in an abnormal manner. Connection between films is incomplete. The entire film may cease to exist if this connection is forcibly maintained. He could only rely on this power for a brief time. However, it was more than enough for him. Yu Young-hyuk raised his head and looked up at the sky. The heavens were screaming out. The flashes of lightning strikes vividly illuminated the scars engraved on his face every so often. Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, has begun its storytelling. Attribute, Terror of the Stars, is activating. His glare caused the stars to run away in fear. Yu Young-hyuk stared at them for a moment, before his figure flashed towards the distant sun. Chapter 474. One Person. Part 3. Han Soo-young just couldn't believe what was happening before her eyes. The Transcenders fell in an instant, and Underworld's judges were also defeated one after the other. Get back, Han Soo-young. As the loud clang resounded out, Jung Hui-won, standing before her, was flung away. The fable mushroomed out from the man, grinning mischievously as if he was playing around. Great Fable, Delusional Design, has begun its storytelling. The entire body of the monarch of the Great Abyss, the 999th turns Kim Nam-woon, began emitting the black flame S aura. That aura soon became a silhouette of a dragon with several heads. Its maw split wide open, and soon after, destructive air currents blanketed everything in the surroundings. Kwaeyoa. Yusung-a. Gilyang-a. The exploding chain of the black flame swallowed the kids. Yu Sang-a left the battlefield in order to rush out and save them, causing the time/space debuff restraining the 999th turn's Uriel to weaken. Go-uhu. She was regaining her original strength after a short period of it shrinking back. The 999th turn's Kim Nam-woon cackled after witnessing that sight. Well, now. What would have happened without my help, I wonder? Shut your mouth. Once I find the secret of Plotter, you're next. She shot Kim Nam-woon a terrifying glare and then swung her, flames of retribution, towards the battlefield. The one opposing her was the Great Sage. The Rui Jingubang dancing around stylishly blocked off her sword strikes. Kim Nam-woon watched the Great Sage match up evenly to an Outer God King and was thoroughly impressed by this sight. What caught his attention even more was the pitch-black aura oozing out from the Great Sage's entire figure. The status of chaos? Did this guy also become an Outer God, too? More correctly, it seems that one of his entities have become one. Ha ha ha, what the hell? What's up with this world line? I shall take care of him, so you bastard, go and take care of the small fries, plus the king of the underworld. Chet, I also wanted to have a go at the Great Sage, just like someone else, you know. Perhaps enraged by the garbage he just heard, the Great Sage roared on and poured out his magical energy. The golden aura blanketed the entire sky and for a moment there, forced back the black flame's attacks. Unfortunately, he had to suffer quite severe aftermaths all over his body as his price. God damn it, my how long? Get a grip, man. It seemed that the great sage's fables, combined temporarily for this event, were colliding with each other. And now, he was being slowly pushed back from the barrage of the 999th turns Uriel. The myth-grade constellations acting as the final redoubt were being forced back, as well. The situation on Hades' side was even worse. Quagwagwagwagwa. It was unknown whether Olympus holding him back or the internal issue within the underworld itself was to blame, but for some reason, Hades' battle came across as rather stifling, unsatisfactory. Ha ha ha. The king of the underworld, one of the three gods of Olympus, amount to only this much? Hades frowned and continued to silently wield his scythe, but he was still pushed back, forcing Persephone behind, telling the great fable to step forward as well. Did you know? Your soul is currently trapped in the underworld in this world line. What rubbish are you talking about? Why am I locked up in there? The 999th turns Kim Nam-woon grew irritated and suddenly poured out a huge amount of black flame. Hades was struck by the attack, capable of melting the space itself, and his gigantic frame crashed into the ocean. Han Soo-young shuddered. That was definitely a type of the black flame she was familiar with. But just how long did anyone have to train in order to control it to such a degree? This is so weird. You telling me that the black flame has chosen someone like you as his incarnation? When she raised her head, the 999th turns Kim Nam-woon was already right in front of her eyes. Han Soo-young flinched, but before she could shrink back, his hand approached her. The moment she realized it was too late to dodge, sparks danced in the air and his hand was deflected away. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is growling. Oh what's this? I'm the real one, black flame dragon ah. Kim Nam-woon's eyes gently arced as if he was dealing with a cute puppy. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, declares that you, bastard, aren't my incarnation. Aha. So you got yourself a shiny new car in this place, is that it? A streak of chilling madness flashed by Kim Nam-woon's eyes. In that case, I guess I should turn it into a scrap heap first. Kaboom. An explosion going off right in front of her nose caused Han Soo-young's body to fly backwards. She tried to minimize the impact force by shrinking herself, but even then, she still vomited out a mouthful of blood. She had her sponsor to thank for not getting killed in that attack. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is shouting at you to run away. The abyssal black flame dragon personally incarnated into the skies and wrapped around her as if to protect her. A giant dragon seemingly sculptured out from a slab of obsidian angrily roared out into the world, its eyes seemingly carved out from a pair of rubies burning brightly. Ha 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 ha. This is it. Now this is more like my black flame dragon. The two existences commenced with their fierce battle, causing the ocean to buckle as if it was being relentlessly bombarded. Shattered fragments of islands flew about, and the black flame dragon's breath enveloped the entire sea. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is revealing his status. Unfortunately, it was difficult to stop Kim Nam-woon after he had become an outer god, even if it was the black flame dragon doing the fighting. From the get-go, this opponent was an existence descending to the world as a calamity. The total amount of probability he was allowed to use was on another scale. Han Soo-young began thinking. What should they do in order to stop this utterly nonsensical creature? If it was Kim Dokja, what could he have done? Fable, predictive plagiarism, has begun its storytelling. It was right then that faint sparks danced around her as a sharp pang of pain rang inside her head. How disappointing. Even in this situation, you're still relying on him? That was a voice she heard before in the past. In a dream she had, when she was still progressing through the Isle of Reincarnators. Inside that dream where a man wearing the white coat was killed by another wearing the black coat, Han Soo-young definitely heard that voice. It's because you're like this, that fool was so full of himself in my regression turn. The fable was actually talking to her. You are. I wasn't planning to interfere anymore, but I'm going to help you one more time. The voice sounded as if it was being very generous to her. Along with the sensation of time slowing down greatly, her cognitive ability expanded as well. Countless Han Soo-youngs woke up inside her head and opened their mouths at the same time. Everything that happens in the world has already happened. There's nothing to be surprised about. A visceral sensation, seemingly hardwired to the future, completely took hold of her brain. An ability that could create a world she didn't know previously by combining numerous cliches, patterns, and given information, went to work. The memories of the ways of survival she read, the info she heard from Kim Dokja, and the info she gleaned herself, were pieced together logically to write a new story. Someone was laughing now. That's right. Now that is the true, predictive plagiarism. And Han Soo-young realized what she needed to do now. Fable, predictive plagiarism, is continuing on with its storytelling. She couldn't tell if it'd work or not. However, if it's Kim Dokja, he'd have done it. Again you. The black flame dragon's loud, rough roar covered up the entire sky. The battle had been going on only for a brief while, yet the creature's proud figure was riddled with wounds, both large and small. Just as the dragon spread open its torn wings to pour out a breath. That's enough, flame dragon. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is. Let me take care of this, so believe in me and take a step back. The black flame dragon's eyes were quickly dyed in confusion after seeing Han Soo-young step forward as if to protect her sponsor. Rather than explaining herself to the dragon, she took yet another step forward. Oh, so you want to fight me personally? With that chestnut-sized body of yours? The 999th turns Kim Nam-woon emitted an incredible amount of aura. The great fable, delusional design wielded grinder-like sharp blades, already fully prepared to cut and slice Han Soo-young up at any given moment. However, she didn't seem to be fazed at all. Kim Nam-woon. You haven't changed even after becoming an outer god. What's this? You sound like you know about me? Right, I know a lot about you. You, the idiot who failed to fulfill his unrequited love and even after becoming an outer god, is still chasing after a girl. The 999th turns Kim Nam-woon's jaw slowly dropped. All outer gods have lost their memories. Or, what little remains are unstable. In that case, how did kings retain their memories? Could it be that those memories are far too precious to them? The dude who couldn't even confess properly when good opportunities presented themselves, yet still puts on underwear with giant robots on them just in case. You. What the hell are you? How do you know something that not even my captain knew? The reason why you always bandage your hand is probably to hide that self-inflicted wound on your wrist, right? You didn't want E.G. Hai to discover that. Kim Nam-woon was momentarily overcome by fluster, but he managed to quickly fix his expression. Why do you like E.G. Hai? Fable, 40,000-year-old crush, is getting agitated. That is, because Ji-hai is pretty. Nope. You might be trash, but you don't have the setting of lusting after women. Setting? What the hell are you talking about? The reason why you like E.G. Hai so much is because she trusts and follows Yu Young Hyok. What dog's head is? You wanted to be acknowledged by her. That you're good enough to replace Yu Young Hyok. Great fable, delusional design, is getting greatly agitated. Actually, you just wished to become like Yu Young Hyok. Han Soo-young stared deeply into the eyes of the 999th turns Kim Nam-woon that were getting colder and harder. What an entertaining story. However, I don't have much time left, you see? I ain't gonna listen to your bull. Han Soo-young didn't know whether saying these things were a right move or not. No, in truth, she knew it wasn't one. Even then, she simply had to say them. In order to save this world, she must. And by doing that, you want to be forgiven by E.G. Hai. Must ruthlessly dig into the old wounds from another world. If it weren't for your mistake, the 999th turns Yu Young Hyok wouldn't have died, after all. Su-cha-cha-chut. Almost instantly, sparks exploded forth from the entire figure of the 999th turns Kim Nam-woon. Sounds of something creaking could be heard next. The foundational fables that formed his core were cracking apart. Those were noises of his memories breaking down. You. The enraged Kim Nam-woon hurriedly gathered up his fables, now swimming in confusion, and roared out. The light in his eyes faded in and out repeatedly. Han Soo-young quietly observed him in the meantime. Even predictive plagiarism can't know everything. Her overheating head felt hot as if it was burning in flames. She hadn't read the entirety of The Ways of Survival like Kim Dokja had done, nor did she live through the 999th turn for real like Yu Young-hyuk. However, there were certain things she could still tell without having to hear or see them. That was the power of imagination, the power to infer the context even though she didn't know the finer details of a particular story. As long as there was a situation, its development prearranged, and with the probability existing in this world. Her predictive plagiarism could exercise a near-omniscient level of power. Kim Nam-woon. Han Soo-young walked in the sky one step at a time. He staggered about, hugging his fables while growling like a wounded beast. Han Soo-young stared at such Kim Nam-woon's fable. It was the same for Yu Young-hyuk as well as the constellations. All creatures that lived for a long time were the same, just as their strengths were reflected in their history, so did their weaknesses, also reflected in their past. That was the fate of the ones telling such stories, the ones being told in those stories. Like an author using a pen to scribble out unnecessary parts, Han Soo-young reached out towards Kim Nam-woon. Just like when Kim Dokja made the 1863rd turns Yu Young-hyuk given. You probably want to go back to those times. However, you must have despaired at the fact that you can never go back. Why you, if you keep running your mouth? However, you need to know this. The world line you lived in is over, and the people you loved aren't going to come back. And the likes of you can never become Yu Young-hyuk. You can never save anyone, nor can you atone for your sins. Kim Nam-woon's cheeks were trembling. The foundation of a being who witnessed the conclusion of the 999th regression turn and became an outer god king, was unsteadily shaking about. He made an expression of a man whose every fable had been lost. In that moment, his face was of a 17-year-old boy thrown into the world for the first time. His fable that existed for tens of thousands of years, his unshakable delusions he had built up all this time, were crumbling apart with just a few well-placed words. And no, that's not true. I am. Han Soo-young spoke as if she was putting the full stop on that small crack. You are simply an eternal prisoner trapped in this stinking star stream, that's all. Pachachachat. Kim Nam-woon. The 999th turns Uriel roared out in her true voice, and Kim Nam-woon's fading consciousness woke back up. Fable, comrade of desperate spirit, has begun its storytelling. The only thing capable of rebuilding a broken fable was another fable. Kim Nam-woon's fable that she worked so hard to disrupt was regaining its original shape. Light was returning to his eyes, too. Han Soo-young could only smile wryly. God damn it, I thought it was going well. Still, did I hurt him at least a little bit? Soon, great rage filled up Kim Nam-woon's eyes. Haha, I almost got done in there. I see, so there was a reason why the Black Flame Dragon had chosen you. A powerful premonition of death washed over her. The predictive plagiarism, tautly spinning around, suddenly sagged like a snapped tape. The tragic premonition of death, being unavoidable no matter where she ran off to. It was then she heard that voice again alongside the Tsuchet. This should be enough. Because the protagonist is here. Her senses seemingly connected to the future rapidly grew murky. Kim Nam-woon's fist raised up high towards the sky froze still. Everyone within the battlefield could sense it. Something incredible was approaching them. Kugugugugu. A status that simply by its existence alone could lead a world to its annihilation. The first one to react was the 999th turns Uriel. It's him. She roared out a horrifying hell towards the skies and quickly left the battle, before flinging herself towards the direction of that status. Kim Nam-woon, too, stared in that direction. You got really lucky this time. Next time we meet, I will. He alternated his gaze between Han Soo-young and the black flame dragon and hesitated, before disappearing in the direction of where Uriel had gone off to. Having lost all sense of tension, she plopped down on her butt on top of the dragon's body. She stared beyond the horizon where those two had disappeared and recalled the last thing Kim Dokja said to her. Han Soo-young, if in the 1 in a million chance that something goes wrong, will you stop planting those ominous foreshadows already? She thought that such things wouldn't happen. No matter what, you gotta endure until that guy shows up. That bastard. Making such a cool entrance and stuff. She could hear thunderclaps going off in the distant night sky, stained by the auras of the hellfire and black flame. A man with an ancient face was descending on the heavens of end times.